I was labeled a genius at age 8. At 20, I joined an assassination organization. By 29, my swordsmanship had broken through its limits. At 40, I annihilated the demon race, leading humanity towards victory. But the reward for my triumph was being sent to the guillotine by my own father. I thought that was the end of my legendary life. But heaven played a joke on me, allowing me to be reborn as a baby. Meanwhile, a figure approaches from a distance to ensure the prosperity of the family. The infusion of fresh blood is also an important step. But this year, none of these outstanding individuals are present. No matter what, this time can only be described as garbage. Suddenly, this figure stops at the foot of my bed, glaring at me with a sidelong stare, ice-cold eyes revealing a full intent to kill. Seeing that I was unmoved, he swore contently, declaring here another less noisy piece of trash, ordered his men to take these babies to the blade's cradle. Seeing the figure before me, familiar yet strange, suddenly a murderous intent surged in my eyes. Isn't this person just how Hugo looked when he was young? Could it be that I have been reborn back to my infancy? Perhaps heaven felt the injustice done to me and gave me a chance to be reborn. So I must make sure there are no longer Baskerville family. Though I want to take revenge immediately, unfortunately, this baby's body can't do anything. But the blade cradle is a good opportunity to enhance my strength. What needs to be done now is to improve my own ability to become stronger. The blade cradle is one of the trials that every child born in Baskerville family must go through. Once there is a baby born, they will be thrown into the blade cradle of the nightmare forest, crawling all the way on the path studded with swords as a test, heading to the other side to receive the baptism of the river Styx. It is said that the waters of the river Styx can make a child's body as strong as steel. However, only a limited number of children can achieve this effect. To be the first to receive the baptism of the river Styx, one must move straight forward through the spiral blade barriers. In my former life as an illegitimate child, pushed aside by direct kin, I could not obtain this power. But reborn, I will surely be the first to arrive and alone enjoy the power bestowed by the river Styx. I arrive at the destination unexpectedly. Under the astonished gaze of the crowd, I plunged headfirst into the river Styx. Water from the river Styx continuously seeped into my wounds. I did not feel any pain. Instead, I felt a steady stream of strength flowing into my body. In just a few minutes of soaking, such effects were apparent. If all this energy could be absorbed, I could far surpass those so-called direct descendants by several blocks. In order to absorb power faster, I opened my mouth wide and crazily sucked in dozens of pounds of Styx water. At this moment, I am already showing signs of drowning. But thinking about the injustices of past lives, even with the last bit of consciousness, I cannot easily surface. The shore's caretaker tells relatives that the time has already passed 30 minutes. Father also revealed a piercing smile, thinking about the Baskerville family soon having a genius that comes once in a century. But the servant began to panic, worried that I had been underwater for so long I might drown, constantly urging the family head to quickly pull me up. At this moment, Father thought it was time for me to come up, not wanting the family to lose a genius that comes once in a century. So Father said to me underwater that I could come up, yet I still showed no response. He directly pulled me, nearly drowned, out of the water, looking at me in surprise. It seems that soaking in the river Styx wasn't enough. You seem to have drunk a lot too. Even your teeth have grown. A satisfied smile then appeared on my father's face, truly worthy of being my son, Hugo. Even if you are about to suffocate, you aim to absorb all the power of the river Styx. Perhaps you can elevate our family to unprecedented new heights. Indeed, my goal is also for the sake of the family, but that is to let the family disappear forever. When I wake up again, I'm already in the nursery. I see a maid holding a gift box. Sneaking up to my bed, murmurs from her mouth, "Why would the lady place this thing in young Master Bigier's cradle?" But as an illegitimate child, I probably shouldn't expect anyone to send me gifts. It seems it's based on my performance in the test. Someone already threatened me. They've started to eagerly get rid of me. Suddenly, the box was pushed open from the inside. Out crawled 2 bloody mamba snakes. It seems they really will stop at nothing to remove me, even going so far as to use such rare venomous snakes to assassinate me. If the me from my previous life had encountered this, I might have perished early. But how could I? a reborn person, possibly fall at the hands of these two little creatures. This is also a good opportunity to test the abilities I acquired in the river Styx. Directly and actively strike with both hands, tightly seizing the vital spot, revealing the steel teeth grown in the river of the underworld. At this moment, I am even more determined to destroy the resolve of the Baskerville family. The next morning, all the servants were shocked in place by the scene in the cradle. Sleeping scattered around me were all the remnants of poisonous snakes. It is evident that yesterday was a one-sided massacre. After that day, all the servants working the night shift were executed. But in the end, the reason for the appearance of the poisonous snakes was never found. Only I saw through all these conspiracies. In the blink of an eye, 8 years later, I have entered the learning phase with the abilities of a genius from a former era. These courses are completely child's play. When I hear about this period, which is 32 years ago, my father was already a master of swordsmanship. I still felt a bit of pressure, but I, with the memories of 2 lifetimes, recovered before the coming-of-age ceremony. The abilities from my past life should be fine. Even though I usually keep a low profile, many still find the legends about me hard to believe. After class, I was pushed into a corner by 3 blonde kids. These 3, once they grow up, are known to be Baskerville's Trident. It is also them who labeled me with the crime of colluding with the Demon Clan. Give these guys another 10 years to grow. They are all troublesome entities. I can only obliterate you in the cradle. Suddenly, Da Huang pulled out a dagger and pointed it at me. I heard that you spent a full 30 minutes in the river Styx. We 3 brothers don't quite believe it. Want to test it out ourselves? Then Huang covered my mouth and nose from behind, saying, "As long as you can hold your breath for 10 minutes under my hands, we will let you go." It is said that children's methods are even more cruel. This statement indeed wasn't wrong. Well then, I shall play along with you all. 12 minutes have passed. At this moment, they seem to realize they have provoked the wrong person. They discuss whether or not to let me go. It's easy to invite the gods, hard to send them away. How could I possibly let you go so easily? I then bite off Huang's index finger. Gloomily looking at them, I said, "Didn't you want to see my capabilities?" Da Huang, seeing his younger brother's finger bitten off, picks up the dagger in his hand and stabs at me. How unexpected that I didn't even try to dodge, just so he could witness the strength conferred by the waters of the river Styx, turning my body to iron. My eyes emitted a fierce gleam. Let me then thoroughly enjoy this game with you. Immediately, I fiercely punched right in Big Yellow's face. Seeing this, San Mao still wanted to take revenge for the 2, but surprisingly, he didn't make a move and was kicked brutally to the ground by my whipping strike. Seeing that the 3 had no power to fight back, I picked up the dagger from the ground and threw it in front of them and said, "I can give you a chance to reform, but only one person can leave. It's up to you to decide who that will be." After exchanging glances with each other, they began a brutal mutual slaughter. From then on, the trident known as Baskerville would cease to exist. In the study of the Baskerville family head, the butler is reporting to the family on recent developments in the family's surroundings. He is also reporting on how I easily won first place in various competitions. But when it comes to the combat test in 3 days, he couldn't help mentioning my fight with the triplet young masters. Although the physical injuries of all 3 have healed completely, it seems there are permanent scars left on their minds. After that, the 3 of us were like strangers. The head of the family was also surprised that I overcame the majority with the minority. Soon after, I was summoned to the study. The head of the family didn't beat around the bush and directly asked if the disability of the triplet brother was related to me. Seeing the head of the family being so straightforward, I also admitted it directly. But I heard that they had already received timely treatment that has restored everything to normal. Although their individual combat power is somewhat inferior, they are, after all, triplets. Having cultivated the Trinity technique, their strength is peerless among those in the same realm. He is also the focus of the family's nurturing. Don't you think your behavior is a mistake? But things have already reached this point. My father thinks that I should reflect on my actions that hurt my elder brother. Hearing this response, my face instantly darkened. I alone can defeat the 3 of them. It only proves that my strength is greater. In a world that respects only the strong, could the powerful possibly make mistakes? If the one summoned first had been your elder brother and he said he forgave you, would you still feel no guilt? I believe that forgiveness is just an excuse for the weak who cannot take revenge. The strong are revered. The weak are at fault. Father was very satisfied with my response. It seems you've already grasped the Baskerville family rules. As a reward for me, Father allowed me to take anything I want from the food storage, a snack of my own choosing. Just as I was about to step out of the door, Father reminded me not to lose to the direct descendants in the real combat assessment 3 days later. Indeed, as an illegitimate child, I am still considered lesser in the depths of the family head's heart. Inside the warehouse full of various treasures, after learning that I wanted chocolate, the butler led me in front of a shelf filled with chocolates. He enthusiastically proclaimed that these were high-quality chocolates meant exclusively for the nobility, not for ordinary consumption. But my next words left everyone present completely baffled. I need raw cocoa beans or coffee beans, the kind with the strongest flavor. Although the butler didn't understand why I needed these unprocessed items, I still instructed the chef to bring the most flavorful variety. This is the very flavorful variety, the bloody bean. One bean alone can make 100 liters of chocolate. After I tasted it, it's really hard to swallow. These unprocessed beans simply aren't something ordinary people can eat. Seeing the bitter look on my face, the chef behind me then asked if this should be processed and then sent to my room, I immediately refused. I didn't take this thing to eat, but to use this kind of blood bean to assist me in hunting demons in the real combat test 3 days later. As for what will happen that day, it will be an unprecedented major event in Baskerville history. 3 days later, the real combat test area was explained by General Instructor Pavlov. The rules of the skill assessment, he said the rules of this assessment are very simple. Only 2 points. Surviving a month in the land of red and black and capturing powerful monsters. Surviving is 10 points. Surviving without any injuries is 30 points. Surviving alone is 50 points. And surviving by capturing a monster is 70 points. Additionally, stealing other people's badges can earn extra points. At this moment, Pavlov mentioned the unreleased area of the land of red and black, the Red and Black Mountain Range. LaRougue, he suggests everyone create their own red and black area space activities will do. When mentioning the Red and Black Mountains, I get excited. It has been a long time since I last came. As soon as the instructor's bell rings, the practical evaluation officially begins. Some people head straight for the advantageous terrain from the last assessment. Others follow behind to see scores opportunistically. And I, relying on memories from a past life, roam as if I am in my own backyard. I found a geomantic treasure spot on the edge of the restricted area. Meanwhile, to ensure the safety of every student, an instructor is dispatched to follow secretly. Originally, he wanted to witness the real strength of the legendary genius. Unexpectedly, while other students were hunting demons with swords, I was working from sunrise to sunset. A series of actions made the instructor doubt me. What exactly am I here for? And he doubted the claims that I am a genius. Rumors, true or false. Little do they know all my actions are just for show. After observing me for some time, they conclude I'm merely recuperating. Truly dull. Then they decide I will always stay here too. No need for protection anymore. Seeing the watchful eyes have left, I immediately pull out a pack of blood beans and throw it into the fire, thinking this blood bean can conceal myself, the smell of blood on the body. The method is still the one my junior from the last century told me about. Then I set up hundreds of traps around. The hunt officially begins. So I set foot into the restricted area of the red and black land. From the burnt smell emanating from the surrounding branches, I am sure that what I want is right here. At this moment, my eyes suddenly light up, only to see a pile of spontaneously combusting poop suddenly appeared on the ground. There's only one type of demon that can produce such a thing. That is the Hellhound, with a danger level of B+, a demon not even instructors dare to provoke lightly. I only need to take the head of the Hellhound to get first place in this live combat test. It's really quite easy. I fully understand that in my past life at age 18, I still couldn't defeat it alone. But now at only 8 years old, I have no fear at all because I know the 3 fatal weaknesses of the Hellhound. The first weakness, it can only charge in a straight line. It's hard for it to keep up with sudden changes in rhythm. As long as I use this well, I can continuously wear down its stamina. The second weakness is that Hellhounds are afraid of water. Regardless of the depth of the water, they will choose to actively avoid it upon seeing water. This move can completely slow down its speed, greatly restricting the movement of the Hellhound, including all canines. Chocolate is highly poisonous to them. Just need to get it to cooperate and open its mouth. I can then take the opportunity to put the blood bean I brought into its mouth. This is the last vulnerability and the most deadly one. All canine attacks involve opening their mouths to bite their prey. I can then take the opportunity to throw the blood bean into its mouth. Next, all that is needed is to quietly wait for the poison to take effect. After all, a blood bean can produce 100 liters of chocolate. The effect is self-evident. It seems that the hound from hell still cannot overcome chocolate. Hellhounds, after all, are B+ level demons. Their bodily structure is quite unique. Their tough ribs constantly protect their heart, so there is only one way to defeat them. That is to attack their lower body, strike at their kidneys. A wisp of blue essence suddenly emanated from the wound of the monster. This is exactly the energy that one can gain from killing monsters, which can quickly enhance a person's strength, making their physical power much stronger. At this moment, I raise my hand and swing the short sword in it, feeling lighter than before. At this rate, recovering all the powers of my past life before the coming-of-age ceremony is not at all an impossible fantasy. For an 8-year-old child to kill a monster of danger level B+, I wonder what expression Hugo will have when he learns of this. Looking at this hellhound that has fallen, I must be the first in this live combat test. Of course, as the first prize, I have already decided it's something I wouldn't even dare think about in my past life. Suddenly, I hear footsteps slowly approaching from behind. 4 more hellhounds appear behind me. They must have heard this guy scream. They seem to come to avenge their companion. Seeing this, I directly swung my sword and chopped off the head of the previously mentioned one, to warn them that they are not something you can provoke. And after I took this action, the expressions of the 4 hellhounds showed terror. They even lowered their heads and kept backing away. At this time, I also noticed something was amiss. After all, hellhounds are considered prey that would rather die than submit. Facing an 8-year-old child, such behavior is impossible. Immediately, I turn my head and stare, only to see a 3-headed dog wrapped in hell's aura appear behind me. The gatekeeper dog of hell, Cerberus, an A+ level 3-headed demon dog, a creature that dwells deep in the Black and Red Mountains. How did it come to the outskirts? Suddenly I notice it's bleeding. Upon closer inspection, there are marks and wounds from arrows all over. Only a savage tribe could have injured this guy like this. At this moment, I continue to soothe my own emotions. As long as I can hunt down this Cerberus dog, I will be one step closer to regaining the powers of my previous life. Even facing a severely injured A-class monster, I no longer hide my strength. A layer of energy quickly forms around the sword in my hand. The ability of a swordmaster is enough to deal with your severe injuries. Launching a sudden attack towards Cerberus, just when I thought this strike would surely, when I hit his head, Cerberus, surprisingly, with the speed of lightning, launched a counterattack from the side against me. Fortunately, my reaction skills are as good as in my past life. I managed to dodge his fierce attack from the rear. It seems that even wounded, his combat strength hasn't decreased much. In my past life, I could easily overpower Cerberus. In this life, I can do the same. Just as I was gathering strength for my attack, Cerberus seemed to sense my provocation, then suddenly opened his abyss-like enormous mouth, emitting continuous roaring sounds. The result came in the next second. Cerberus suddenly launched an attack. My precious sword was actually bitten into pieces by him, and while I was stunned, my body was directly blown away by his giant paw. At this moment, I truly realized the gap in strength. Just me at my current age of 8 challenging Cerberus. Still too early. Even though I possess a body of steel granted by the river Styx, after enduring his strong attacks, the organs inside my body were almost shattered. Seeing the demon drawing closer, I kept reminding myself in my mind, I must not fall unconscious. Suddenly, Cerberus opened its bloody jaws, attacking me. I immediately forced my injured body to dodge away. Otherwise, the badly bitten tree behind would be me. Seeing the situation turn bad, recalling the last life, I still had a trick, a crucial move at the moment of life and death. It seems there is no need to hide it at this moment. That is the best plan, is to flee, using the tactic of the 36 stratagems. If it weren't injured right now, I might have already become food in its mouth. I really must thank the barbarian tribe. Suddenly, a metal fence appeared before my eyes. As long as I stick to the perfect hunting trap prepared beforehand, I can find an opportunity to defeat Cerberus. Seeing Cerberus getting closer behind me, I immediately leap over the first trap. And just as I am about to make intimate contact with the monstrous beast, it finally triggers the trap upon landing. Its body weight presses down on the surface of the trap. Countless blades then pierce through its body. Welcome to the Cradle of Blades. Originally intended for trapping hellhounds. Didn't expect to catch a Cerberus. The blood bean water quickly took effect. The dog heads on both sides of the monster were the first to die from poisoning. It seems that chocolate really is effective against all canine species. Could it be because it's a higher order that the monster won't fall down at once? The middle head hasn't been greatly affected. I held a long spear in my hand and concentrated my magic on it, sprinting 100 meters, exerting all my strength to launch forward. But when hitting the last head of Cerberus, I was bounced back. As Cerberus, under the throne of Hades, has never faced such provocation, it approached me, dragging its scarred body. Meanwhile, I was silently counting the steps in my mind. 1 step, 2 steps. When Cerberus approached me, it was exactly on the 7th step. Cerberus then collapsed, stricken by the poison, unable to rise. It seems that the rumors of the bloody mamba snake are indeed true. Once bitten, death follows after 7 steps. Fortunately, I had secretly saved a little bit when I was a child. Today, it proved extremely useful after I absorbed the energy of Cerberus. However, I was troubled by how to convince the examiner that I had killed an A+ level monster. Suddenly, I think of an even more important piece of information. The Cerberus is a monster that guards its territory. Clearly, there is a dungeon nearby that it guards. The dungeon must contain mysterious treasures. At the same time, it will also be home to powerful monsters. Then I pick up the feces of Cerberus and hellhounds and smear it on my body to mask my own scent, using the status of Cerberus and the Crimson Spirits to prevent sneak attacks from other monsters. Afterward, I followed the original route of Cerberus and quickly found the hidden dungeon deep within. I remember visiting this place in my former life, but it was not discovered until 10 years later. The treasures within had already been taken, but now it's different. Behind the stench of decay lies the scent of magic. Clearly, the contents inside are still there. I'm really looking forward to what kind of treasures are waiting for me. As I keep going deeper, ruby veins are visible all over the walls. It seems this place must connect to the red and black mountains. But just then, a blinding beam of light suddenly shot towards me from the depths of the cave. The dazzling light amidst the darkness made it impossible for me to open my eyes for a moment. I deduced that must be the location of the underground city. Indeed, just as I expected. Inside, there conspicuously appeared a ruby emitting magical powers. It turns out it was this magic-filled ruby that illuminated the entire underground. As I surveyed the surroundings, I was drawn to a skeleton lying on the ground. This skeleton seemed to have been stabbed with a knife, wounded all over, covered in wounds. There were also brown, dry bloodstains which, upon estimation, seemed to have been there for many years. Immediately, I picked up the will dropped on the ground. From the handwriting on the letter, it can be judged that this person also belongs to the Baskerville family. The letter starts by warning future generations not to make the same mistakes he did. They heard that the legendary underground castle contained countless rare treasures, so he and his brother came together to explore deep within the Red and Black Mountains. However, they accidentally came upon this bottomless cave. I feel this is the legendary place. Here, I have endured countless trials and killed all the monsters, seizing the dungeon. But the final challenge to unlock the treasure unexpectedly let. They thought about it for a full 3 years. Before entering, there was one person. After entering, there were 2 people. When leaving, there was only 1 person. Finally, after 3 years, one day they reached a conclusion. That is because they are identical twins. In their mother's womb, they were considered 1 person. When they came to the dungeon, indeed, they were 2 people. So, to obtain this treasure, one must eliminate the other. Although he took his brother's head in the battle, the red gem still showed no change. Looking at the brother he had killed by his own hands, ultimately, he could not accept this fact. He gave up the treasure and chose to escape reality because he was convinced that the dungeon was set up by demons to mock humanity. After reading the letter in my hand, I was utterly speechless. If it's true, then me coming in alone, don't I even lack the opportunity to participate in the assessment? In my past life, there was no dungeon I couldn't solve. At that moment, the shadow behind me gave me a hint, and I already had the answer in my heart. Swinging my fist towards the red gem on the altar, the tunnel I walked through had not a single ray of light. It was just one person. When I arrived inside the hall, the light emitted from the gem cast my shadow, forming two people. Then, as long as the gem is shattered, letting the hall return to darkness, only I will remain. As the shattered gem slowly rises, among them emerged what appeared to be the demon sword that exists only in legends. In my past life, I had only heard of it. During the ancient times, 7 demons appeared. They committed every imaginable evil, making life unbearable for the people, to prevent greater disasters from happening. The heads of 7 great families stood up. Each fought against a demon. The first family head of the Baskerville family faced one of them. The demon is the gluttonous fly, Beelzebub. After fighting fiercely for 99 days, he was finally slain, sealed within the territories of Skver. This demon sword is the incarnate of the gluttonous fly, transformed from the corpse of Beelzebub. It is said that this sword later fell into the hands of the demons in the War of the Demon Clan. Countless people were driven to desperation. But that kind of thing won't happen in this lifetime because now it belongs to me. Suddenly, the devil's sword transformed. Energy surged into my right hand. In an instant, the blade grew out from my body again. At the same time, I felt a surge of power throughout my body. Truly, it is the demon sword woven from a demon's corpse. From now on, it will be my strongest trump card. After looking around and finding nothing of value, I prepared to leave. A strong sense of dizziness suddenly overcame me. More accurately, it was a feeling of hunger. I guess it's mostly the fault of this damned demon sword. After all, it hasn't eaten in hundreds of years here. When I staggered out of the cave, I seemed to smell food. Could it be that the demon sword has made my sense of smell even keener? The demon sword actually led me to run swiftly in one direction. Indeed, it's as I suspected. It discovered the B+ hellhound I had hunted. The sword plunged into the beast's body in an instant. During the absorption phase, my feeling of faintness was also slowly fading. Could it be the disappearance of the vitality of the forest and soil in the red and black mountains was also caused by it? And after absorbing the B+ hellhound, I actually gained this hellhound's bleeding skill effect. Even the smallest wound can continuously pump out a skill that drains the enemy's blood, and there are still 2 slots left. It seems every demon has a fixed ability, and the demon sword can absorb others' skills and claim them as its own. Suddenly, the demon sword forcefully dragged me aside. Turns out it was not satisfied with a grade B hellhound. Beside the body of a grade A Cerberus draws its interest even more. At this rate of absorption, there might be no prey left for the real combat test. It then angrily rebuked, "In my body you must obey my commands." After absorbing the Cerberus, the remaining 2 slots were also filled. I acquired the Cerberus skill, Fire Damage. After being attacked, the body will have the pain of being burned by fire until death. I was wondering if Cerberus at higher levels will have 2 skills, but when I carefully looked at the 3rd skill, I was speechless. F-grade Mole High-Speed Regeneration ability. It turns out it was gnawing on Cerberus's corpse. The rat was also absorbed. The prey for the practical test is also ready. Just leisurely wait until the test is over. Just a few days after the practical test ended, young hunters finally gradually returned. They brought with them their respective trophies, following which are various assessments and rewards. But everyone was shocked to see the game I brought back. They were utterly astonished. Never would they have imagined that an 8-year-old child could kill an A-class monster. Soon this matter reached the ears of the family head. An 8-year-old who could kill the 3-headed dog that even the family's guard knights found challenging. This has never happened in the history of the family. Similarly, the butler also expressed shock that such a formidable young master was not of the direct line. At this time, the family head spoke. He wants to change the traditional method of training hunting dogs by the family heads, not to regard bloodline that importantly, whether royal blood or slave blood. As long as there is enough strength, it should be well cultivated. Even dogs of good lineage. Sometimes there are some disappointing ones. Is it young Master Bigier who has changed the family head's personality? At this moment, I have been summoned to the family head study. Hugo is still as direct as ever in addressing the main issue. I heard that you killed the three-headed dog Cerberus during the live combat test. How did that happen? I then, with a face of sheer luck, said it was thanks to the chocolate that Father rewarded me last time. As everyone knows, chocolate is poison to all canines. I still had just enough left to barely hunt it down. Then why, when the butler just asked you about hunting, you didn't answer properly? Seeing Hugo pressing the question, I could only flatteringly say he's not my master. I belong to the Baskerville family. I only listen to the head of the household's orders. Hugo, hearing my very loud flattery, believed what I said. Even more so, he directly gave me the bodies of the monsters I hunted as a reward to me entirely. Additionally, there's the reward for securing first place, which allows me to propose any prize I want. But my next answer took them by surprise. I want to enter the family's fortunate library to study. Hearing my answer, a shadow once again crossed my father's face. Do you know that this library is only accessible to the clan leader and direct descendants? Afterwards, I said, if it's not allowed, then forget it. But in my heart, I was scheming how to sneak in. Suddenly, Hugo's words shocked me. You can go in, and you can even take a look deep in the library. There lies the Baskerville family's book of the 6th sword technique. At that moment, I'm starting to wonder if rebirth can really change a person's character. In a past life, anyone whose name contains the 3 characters for bastard could only train up to the 4th sword technique at most. But now, I shouldn't celebrate too soon. Currently, my father has reached the 7th sword technique. Even at the time of my execution, he had already mastered the 9th sword technique. Now, reincarnated, I must surpass him. Because I know of a forgotten tome of sword techniques. Inside contains the first family head's understanding of swordsmanship. As long as I comprehend all its contents, then I will directly break through to the 10th sword technique. Immediately, I hurried to the Wankson library. The swordsmanship books I desperately wanted to learn in my previous life are all here. In order to ensure becoming a hound not to their masters, baring teeth and grinning, they absolutely cannot learn better swordsmanship than the 4th move. And at this moment, what appears before me is exactly the 6th sword technique that my father recommended I learn. Once I think about Hugo allowing me to read this book about the 6th move, is it because he thinks an 8-year-old child could not comprehend its content? But you have miscalculated this variable, which is me. The previous life's me had already mastered the first 4 techniques. So I quickly skipped the earlier content and rapidly flipped through. My purpose in coming here was not for this. Soon, I grasped the secrets of the 5th and 6th sword techniques. Walking deeper into the library, suddenly I was attracted by an inconspicuous place, lurking ambush. It was written by the first head of the Baskerville family. It records not only the basic training skills of a 9-sword technique, basic training skills. One can even learn the lost 10th sword technique. As for why no one has been able to learn it, that's because 7 pages of content are missing from it. But now I know the true value of this book. In my previous life, when I was on a mission near the Red and Black Mountains, after unintentionally discovering a piece of paper in the dungeon, Father began to be obsessed with the 10th sword technique. To find the remaining content and surpass himself, he released all his hunting dogs. Learning that the rest of the content was hidden among the 7 great families, he began to declare war on the other families. After sacrificing countless hunting dogs, all the missing pages were finally collected. But for some reason, he from the past couldn't find the matching book, despite searching through the entire library. But he took out his anger on us, causing me to lose many brothers. Now, Reborn, I absolutely won't let such things happen again, because I deeply remember the contents of the 7 pages. So, I will break through the original 4th realm to cultivate to a height that no one in the family has reached. Just as I was concentrating and immersed in the content of the book, time slowly moved into the evening. Finally, I memorized the entire book's content. Immediately begin to close eyes and meditate. The body instantly enters the sea of consciousness. At the same time, an enemy also appears before me. Immediately, I gather magical power in my palm, turning my arm into a solid sword. I then perform the first sword technique of Basque towards the enemy in front of me, launching an attack. Following that is the 2nd sword technique, and the third sword technique, quickly followed by the fourth skill, a furious slashing advance. Next comes the breakthrough of my fifth sword technique, recalling the heartlessness of my father in the previous life, the exclusion by my direct brothers, the devoted service for the family. Yet they did not allow me to practice the fifth sword technique just because my identity is that of a bastard. I immediately burst forward in attack, only to see the enemy before me suddenly transform into the likeness of Hugo. The anger accumulated over 2 lifetimes transformed into a powerful attack. The attack instantly penetrated Hugo's body. "I will certainly tear you all to pieces in this world," I declare. At the same time, I also break through from the sea of consciousness. Its attack power still seems very weak. At this moment, I am extremely happy. I clearly felt that my magic power has been enhanced. In my past life, I spent 30 years and never reached this realm. In this life, I have actually achieved it at the mere age of 8. Now, I have progressed from a swordsmanship expert to the lowest level of master. I will control my magic power more freely. It seems that before my adult ceremony at the age of 15, restoring the power of my past life will be more than enough. Then I took out a magnifying glass from my pocket. Using the focusing principle of light, I ignited a lurking pursuit. In this world, only I will be able to break through to the 10th sword technique. But just at this moment, the guard, smelling the burnt odor, immediately ran upstairs. I touched my head and explained that I accidentally burned a book of no value. Upon hearing this, both of them also breathed a sigh of relief. Had it been a relatively important book that got burned, taking their lives 3 generations deep would not suffice as collateral. The scene changes. I arrived in my father's room and told him that after finishing my studies, I could now feel a burning sensation within me. Upon hearing this, both my father and the butler were instantly stunned, because this meant that I had entered the realm of the sword. Of course, this is not my true strength, but to test the level I had reached, my father arranged a duel for me. A C-rank orc that has been starving for 2.5 months. At this moment, the audience all hold their breath. After all, for an 8-year-old child, this is already more than he can handle. But what none of them anticipated was just as the orc was unchained and let out a wild roar, I flashed past with the speed of lightning and even severed one of its arms. And due to the influence of a B-rank Hellhound's Blood Rage skill, the orc, despite its high-speed regeneration, will be helpless. Looking at its eyes stricken with fear, it probably never guessed why it couldn't regenerate. With a wave of my large hand, a surge of blood-red magic then clung to the blade. A single thrust instantly ended the orc's life. This relative could no longer remain seated. From my initial performance to now instantly slaying a Class C monster, I am undoubtedly a once-in-a-millennium genius. Merely at 8 years old, I grasped the first sword technique. Seeing this, I smiled and spoke to my father. The orcs seem too weak. Please arrange for me another more challenging duel. Originally, I thought with such a display of my skills, my father would send me to a specialized school for further studies. But unexpectedly, he discussed with the butler about the demon captured 10 days ago. A B-level giant troll that had been hungry for 2.5 years. As the chains restraining the demon were unlocked, the battle was about to explode. I, relying on my agile movements, continuously dodged its fierce attacks, but I again and again gave up the chance to counterattack because I know that a level B troll possesses a perverse skill, super regeneration. If it cannot be dealt a fatal blow, then any attack becomes worthless. This is why when hunting trolls, a meticulous plan must be devised. Now, although I have found its fatal weakness, I am faced with another dilemma. Just how much effort should I put in? Only under the premise of killing the giant troll without raising my father's suspicions. At this moment, I had a sudden epiphany. If I could fake an enlightened duel instead of immediately killing the monster, it would not only dispel my father's suspicions, but also justifiably reveal more of my own strength. As the troll charged at me again, this time I did not choose to dodge. Instead, I executed the first sword technique of Baskerville and fiercely slashed a huge gash across its shoulder. As the troll's injuries were about to fully heal, I immediately let out a loud shout, attracting the attention of everyone present, including my father. I finally had an epiphany. Next, I will attempt to instantly kill this troll. If I fail, I will choose to give up. My eyes were filled with a murderous intent. At the same time, I transferred my magical power to my sword, pretending at this moment that I had already mastered the second sword technique. Sure enough, everything went as I expected. The power of control neatly sliced through the troll's thick skin, splitting his head and body in two. Under the incredulous eyes of the crowd, with the posture of a genius, I gave them a new understanding. In the days that followed, because my strength was too overpowering, peers and even older students dared not come too close to me. But none of that matters. What's important is that my father was greatly surprised by my performance. As of now, the strength I demonstrate merely places me as an intermediate expert in the realm of the sword. But in fact, with my current abilities, I have already comprehended the fifth sword technique of Baskerville, and coupled with the super regeneration I've just acquired, I am in no way inferior to a low-level master. At this moment, the triplet that I previously bullied found me. I thought they were coming to settle accounts with me. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be because I looked too impressive killing monsters. They have become my loyal fans. Goosebumps instantly swept over my entire body, remembering my past life. It was because of them that I was killed. I couldn't wait to immediately get rid of them. However, just as I was about to beat them up again, the butler found me and told me about the matters entrusted by my father. At the same time, the head of the Basque family and the deputy head of the Morgue family, Adolf, were discussing how to conduct this year's joint training. Although the relationship between the two families isn't harmonious, there was once an emperor who said, "Baskerville is the family of the sword. The Morgue family prioritizes magic above all. The way of the sword and magic should be complementary. Only in this way can the nation surpass its peak." From then on, every year, all children aged 8 to 15 must participate in joint training hosted by the two major families. At this moment, Adolf asked, "I hear that a peerless genius has been born to your Baskerville family." "Just right. We at Morgue also have one." Then he called over his niece, Camus. "This is a world where everyone can use magic. Yet there is a family that uniquely lacks any magical talent. Whether dueling or hunting monsters, they rely solely on physical strength, and they must spend 25 hours a day immersed in sword training." Over time, the Empire formed two factions: the Morgue family, known for their magic, and the Baskerville family, renowned for their swordsmanship. At this moment, the heads of the two major families proudly boast about the once-in-a-century genius youths of their respective families. Adolf takes the initiative to strike, calling upon their family's genius girl, Camus, who is also his most beloved little niece. But he had already planned his strategy. He knows his niece's explosive temper, hoping to use this to suppress Baskerville's clan leader, Hugo. Just then, Camus disregards the seniority and unleashes a verbal barrage at Hugo, calling him an unashamed ore thief. "Return the ruby mines that belong to us." It turns out that the reason for the conflict between the two great families all stemmed from the mining rights of the ruby mine. Seeing this, Adolf persuades his niece with feigned emotions that she shouldn't curse others like that. Fortunately, Hugo was not angry. He just felt that it was merely poor supervision over the child. Camus listens and does not back down. As a magic prodigy, she must have enough ruby mines for her magic experiments. Adolf hurriedly stops her before she could intimidate further, because a fierce beast is desperately suppressing the anger in its heart. Just at this moment, a sentence broke the rigid situation. "What doesn't belong to you will never change." I enter with the butler pushing the door. Adolf begins to size up the opponent's strength upon seeing him, but he didn't expect that his niece had already left her seat. Camus questions why I dared to say that sentence just now. The ruby mine itself is bound with the magical family. At this moment, I am completely surprised because the girl standing before me turns out to be the most powerful magician in the next 20 years. She can even control the royal family, revered by all as the authoritative female fire god. So I mock her for coming all the way to our territory just to throw a tantrum. Camus immediately becomes furious with embarrassment. Then, with both hands, she gathers frost magic. I thought she wanted to face off with me, but instead, she merely restored the topographic maps of the two major families. At this moment, Camus points to the location. It is precisely at the border between two castles where the ruby mines are located. She explained that part of the ore should belong to their Morgue family. Baskerville has no right to monopolize it all. I then told her, rubies are less useful to us than scrap iron. Our ultimate goal in mining is to expand our territory. Camus decided to demonstrate more directly who is entitled to mine and obtain the ruby mines. He extended his hand from their family to Baskerville's territory, implicitly indicating that the Morgue family is the strongest. Immediately, I grabbed Camus' hand. He then pulled out a small knife from his pocket. Anyone who dares to invade our territory will be killed without mercy. However, just as the blade was about to make contact, I had already anticipated that Adolf would intervene, and I let go, explaining that blades are merely toys in the Iron Sword family, incapable of causing any harm. Afterward, I apologized to Adolf and his group, and my father also suggested we should refocus the discussion. That is this year's joint training of the geniuses from the two major families. The scene changes. I and Camus then stand in the ring. As the match bell rings, Camus immediately swings his gestures, chanting fire magic spells, thunder magic spells, and ice magic spells. Seeing 3 types of magic attacking me at once, I mockingly tell her she'd better focus on one thing, then quickly use agile maneuvers to dodge each one, fiercely hitting those who think knowing multiple types of magic makes them geniuses in the face. Suddenly, Camus chants an earth escape spell. A wall of earth rises from the ground on the broadcast station. Unexpectedly, it was shattered by my punch. It couldn't hinder my attack at all. But in order not to harm the future's strongest magician, I merely flicked her forehead in retaliation. The gap in our strengths was already glaringly apparent at this moment, but Camus still refused to admit defeat. Then, he summoned 2 more walls of earth. Actually, this level of magic is simply an insult to human intelligence. Bypassing it can easily solve the issue. In order not to hurt her pride too much, I decided to be the most competent actor and control my own strength. After withstanding my punch, the 2 earthen walls also had a small hole punched through by me. Then, I flicked my finger at his forehead again. But even when it came to a clear-cut situation, Camus still used fire magic against me. I guess this is probably why she could become the authoritative female fire god. Stubborn, proud, never speak lightly of giving up. At this moment, I heard a conversation on the platform behind me, so I didn't continue to attack, but retreated. The next second, suddenly, a huge fireball spell appeared behind me. This is the countermeasure I thought of to make this match a draw. There was no overwhelming power, but after both of us were hit by the fireball, Camus' clothes were burned, leaving only the essential parts. So I took off my upper clothes and gave them to her, and the outcome of the match was as I predicted. Due to unavoidable circumstances, our duel was judged as a draw. But I believe at that moment, everyone would consider that Baskerville won. Yet, on the way back, Father still criticized me because I didn't give it my all. Being soft-hearted and lenient on the battlefield is a big taboo. He warned me that whether it's a woman or a relative, if they pose a threat to oneself, one must strike back. At this moment, I was suddenly shocked. In a previous life, after the death of his first wife, he neglected me, his illegitimate child. One could even say he treated me like discarded trash. I then told him that I was plotting another plan. After all, the focus of Baskerville is on expanding the land. The borders of the Land of Black and the ruby mines are constantly threatened by barbarians and hellhounds. If we could harness the power of the Morgue family, we could keep the losses from expanding our territory to a minimum. Father is very pleased with my plan, but he doesn't know that this is actually based on memories from my past life. I proposed it before he did. When we reached the corner, Adolf found us again. He is well aware that Baskerville's power far exceeds that of the Morgue family. He decided to handle the land and ruby mine issues in a peaceful manner. The two families have a cross-racial union, arranging for Baskerville's eldest son and their genius Camus to be engaged. As soon as the words were spoken, Camus refused Adolf. She disagreed with marrying someone 17 years her senior. She said any engagement must be with someone close to her age and a person whose abilities she acknowledges. I guess the person she refers to is me, because since she entered the room, her gaze has not left me for a moment. At the same time, Adolf also guessed his niece's thoughts. How could she, of noble status, marry someone who is a bastard of impure bloodline? Hugo did not want to get involved, so he left the decision to me, and I agreed to the proposal. But Adolf was the first to disapprove. For this reason, he decided to test me himself, to see if I am worthy of becoming a son-in-law in his family. In this world, children are born with 8-pack abs, not only hard as steel, impervious to swords and guns. Even the girl who will become the most powerful sorceress is completely captivated by my 6-pack abs. So she shamelessly asked her uncle for an arranged marriage with her family. But unexpectedly, Adolf was only interested in the ruby mines. He did not consider Camus' subtle intentions and decided to engage her to the eldest son of the Baskerville. Camus, a man 17 years her senior, simply could not accept it, and the person she likes is none other than me, right here. However, upon learning that the noble princess was to marry an illegitimate child of impure blood, he was the first to object unless you can pass his test of strength. I agreed without hesitation. After all, Camus, in terms of both appearance and ability, is one of the top figures in this empire. The scene shifts. We both arrived at the competition platform only to see Adolf chanting 3 kinds of magic spells. Out of thin air, he forged a kettle. He proudly declared that he would duel me with the kettle. If even a single drop of water flows out, I win. I am well aware of Adolf's strength. The probability of winning by confronting him head-on is 10%. The chance of success in an assassination or surprise attack is 50%. But I guess my father wants to see my current strength. Thus, he accepted this lopsided challenge. That makes things much simpler. All I need to do is meet my father's expectations. Then I drew my sword and charged forward. Suddenly, Camus reminded me that I must not confront his uncle head-on. Adolf had long thought of a way to deal with swordsmen, using a defense shield spell with extremely strong defensive power. Ordinary swords can't possibly shatter it. Following that, he started chanting a fire spell. Huge fireballs began to gather above his head. But just as he was about to throw one at me, Camus reproached him for using additional magic. This left Adolf unsure of whose side he should be on. But even so, memories from a past life told me Adolf was not undefeatable. If you can grasp his 2 weaknesses, you can easily make him lower his guard. You might even be able to kill him. Having said that, I swung my sword and kept attacking the magic shield. Seeing this, Adolf quickly said not to waste effort. Even if this level of magic is truly genius, without a proper weapon it still cannot be broken. But as soon as he finished speaking, the next second, the magical shield actually showed a crack. For this, Adolf greatly admired my focus. To be able to hit the same spot accurately 23 times, and after I swung the final blow, my sword shattered from the pressure it could not withstand. Little did he know that this was the final step of my plan. My father and Camus were utterly astonished by this, since Adolf, who was doubting my abilities to marry his niece, a water jug above his head started to leak water. It meant that I had passed this test of strength. I cast a disdainful glance at him. After all, he never imagined until his death that letting his guard down when he saw my broken sword would be his biggest mistake. At this moment, Camus' face is flushed. Unknowingly, just 2.5 minutes after we met, we actually agreed on a marital alliance for family peace. Time quickly passed. 7 years went by. On the training grounds of Baskerville, the once naive children have become spirited teenagers. Looking at their sharp eyes, they can be determined to have become a qualified hunting dog. At this moment, they are cooperatively hunting a misclassified bison bear. This is also their final test before they can successfully graduate. Meanwhile, the trident whose bond I once shattered was supposed to lose itself and poorly spend the remaining years. But unknowingly, it has become my little fanboy. Now in team combat, it can also play a significant role. Originally, the 3 of them were not lacking in strength. I just forced them to change the direction of their evolution. After a 70-minute siege, this bear cow finally exhausted all its strength. What's left is facing the slaughter by numerous hounds. With this hunting experience, each of them has reached the beginner level of expertise. Up to now, the 7 years of training has come to an end at this moment. But the instructor still reminds, the difference between a wild bear cow and one kept in a cage is still significant. So when facing any demons that have been defeated before, always maintain the highest level of vigilance, because death occurs more easily than imagined. After the last salute is done by both sides, they begin to choose their future direction. In the Baskerville family, There are 7 great night orders. Each night order also has its own duties: scouting, defense, assassination, etc. And I, after much deliberation, chose the Hound Knights from a past life. Now, I am of an intermediate master's level. Although in these 7 years I have only moved from junior to intermediate, compared to my former self, this already surpasses the abilities I had at 40 years old. Just then, the butler suddenly appeared, joyfully telling me that my father was looking for me. At this moment, I already had my answer. My first mission at the age of 15 made a pivotal determination. As the scene transitions, my father, whom I hadn't seen in 7 years, was sitting right before my eyes. I quickly noticed something unusual, so I asked him about the scar on his face. He touched his face and said meaningfully, "This was left by a female archer from the barbaric tribes of the Red-Black land, and I returned the favor in kind. But no matter what, I must congratulate you on successfully graduating and becoming a qualified hound." A single sentence from my father, yet it disturbs my calm for a long time. In a former life, for 40 years, I either went to battle or carried out assassinations. As an illegitimate son, this was the only treatment I had. It was simply impossible to be like children of pure blood and enjoy the management and training of the elite class. Unexpectedly, this time, the lower house proposed by my father turns out to be part of the elite class too, and he has decided to let me give it a try. It seems that in this life, my father's personality has truly changed. He no longer looks at lineage, but rather at achievements. At present, my achievements have already surpassed those of an 18-year-old hound, which is why my father grants me such favor. But before I can fully assume the role of governor, I still need to borrow a large sum from my father. I originally thought he would ponder a bit before making a decision, but unexpectedly, he stamped his approval without any hesitation and even expressed his belief that I would not do anything foolish. When I am ready to leave here, the butler decided to tell me some truths. Because of my unusual talents, the head of the family values and cherishes me very much. He hopes that I can give my all to complete the task this time. After all, before going into battle, my power as a governor will greatly increase. It might even surpass some of the pure-blooded children. Upon hearing this, my face instantly darkened. Let's talk about these things later. For now, I'm still not sure if I can handle being a governor. Although this matter is definitely good for me, I can use this opportunity to hone my skills. But I have no interest in current affairs. Regardless, I cannot forget the feeling of losing my head in my previous life. Despicable Hugo. You just wait. I will make sure you experience this feeling for yourself. In this world, 99% of people are second-generation rich simply because they possess a special decree. No matter who it is, as long as they follow the laws established by the country, they can obtain supreme wealth. And the little girl before us did just that, following the words of the governor. She pulled out the wooden stick that was stuck in the ground. After that, she received a reward of 10 billion gold coins. And when I arrived in Baskerville, the most corrupt city, the people inside had basically lost faith in life. Even the governor changed 70 or 80 times within a month. But now it is my turn to be the governor. This city will take on a new appearance, becoming one of Baskerville's leading cities. The person standing beside me right now is my future assistant, Vicky. In this city with a huge wealth gap, he represents the most vivid example of the poor. Despite his desire to change the current situation of the city, he is always stabbed multiple times by rich people lurking behind. Meanwhile, I am looking at the regulations in the law book. Almost every one of them has small loopholes. This has also led to the emergence of numerous unscrupulous enterprises. Underground criminal organizations are above the law. I told Vicky that I would not change the existing law. Instead, I would create a new one based on it, and promised that within a week, all illegitimate enterprises would be shut down. But due to my young age, the words I blurt out might not convince many bosses, so I must stage a play to make everyone here obey me. Time moved to the second day. I instructed Vicky to issue the notice for the new decree, gathering everyone at the city center. Looking at the new governor, whose hair had not fully grown in, people below the stage issued sounds of disdain, but I can't worry about so much. Today I held an emergency meeting just to persuade them. At this moment, I am explaining the decree that has already taken effect behind me, indicating that it will continue to be implemented in the future, and it will be even stricter than before. Once transgressions occur, they must be pursued to the end. When this was said, the audience below didn't believe it. Past experience told them that new officials usually just put on a show. In the end, they simply give up and do nothing. Vicky immediately reprimanded the people who made reckless statements. Upon hearing this, several people immediately shut their mouths. Seeing this, I really wanted to give my position to Vicky. It's much more useful than me standing under the scorching sun speaking.